Okay, so this is a part 2. So, another thing with these types of people, and like I said, this is especially common because, for one, Southern quote-unquote culture that revolves around a lot of slave trade trauma and religious slave trade gospel flip around stuff. Ageism, adultism, which also revolves around parent worship and even other things that are tied into like slave trade gospel stuff. Something that people mention a lot, which is the fact that a lot of quote-unquote black women have the Jezebel spirit, and honestly even a lot of the guys do too. Although I would say that these days just a lot of people do. And also the other spirits that go along with what people now like to call being a quote-unquote narc, that stupid label. But especially with I think, actually no, I could say that especially in the South and in the quote-unquote black community, it makes me think back to something that people talk about a lot. The toxic, abusive grandparents that messed your parents up through manipulation and quote-unquote narc abuse, and then after a while they change their life around, at least to the public, and they start trying to play that holier than thou thing like my mom liked to say about people. And I'm not even gonna lie, I get why my mom liked to talk about people who do that, because the scenario with this lady did make me think about the holier than thou thing, but honestly a lot of stuff makes me think about that. Like, apparently, I can't remember where I met her. Or at least this lady started seeing me more at the library. I guess to not get it mixed up, I'll try to call her, I guess, S, so I don't get too confused, but... So, one of the things that I noticed is that in the white areas, the churches are really racist, so that'll keep them from letting you in, but also, if they know or feel like you're homeless, they're not going to let you in, so it's about impossible to get in and use the bathroom without being completely having a door. I have to edit this in because I completely forgot this. I was gonna also say, this is one of the reasons why I plan on making a video about how you can't just run to religious organizations begging people for stuff. I've never done this for many reasons because overall I know better, which is a long story. But very often, whenever somebody's in a situation, people will be like, go run to some religious organizations and beg them for help. I had somebody tell me this in 2022 when I was originally trying to escape my abuse situation and I needed some money to get a bus ticket to go somewhere safer. I've also seen people tell people this. I've had people tell me this recently. And I've even seen somebody make a comment about that under videos from, I think, Nova from Software Underbelly, her personal YouTube channel. Somebody said that she should go to a church and ask for help. And it's like, you must have never been homeless and never been in a bad situation, especially a younger person in a bad situation. A religious organization is about to call her all types of things out her name and definitely not help her. They wouldn't even want her anywhere near a church. I'm not saying that she's a bad person, but it's especially like I already said, the white churches are racist. The black churches, they have the usual, I'm grown, you're a child, you're being grown, you're being bad, you're a hoe mindset. So that would honestly be another bad situation. But yeah. The white churches are also more openly anti-homeless because, for one, the white churches typically have more money. Slammed and locked in your face, or having cops called on your security to escort you out. But in the quote-unquote black areas, they'll at least let you use the bathroom and let you get some water. And I think that might have been the first time I've seen that lady, although I don't know if she's been there in a while. I try to avoid really the side of town that the church is on, but I did go there to use the bathroom a couple times, which actually, there was a lot of stuff with that, but, it was still decent, though. It's not like the things that I witnessed in, the white areas, where, you'll be lucky if you can even sneak in to even pee for 2 seconds. And this lady did mention how, something that could go into what a lot of people call the holier than thou thing. she felt like the fact that, like, the church knew I was a child and they ignored my situation made her feel some type of way. And she was like, the church isn't doing what it's supposed to do. And then she said something about, oh yeah, the elderly lady, which, if I remember, I'll call her Jay. And she was like, she knows that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing and that they don't care because she knows that they know that Jay was elderly and disabled and handicapped, and she knows that they know that she was sleeping behind the church because they have cameras. And that makes me think about something else that this dude went on a rant about, but I don't want to get involved with like gossip and all that stuff that goes along with that. But he was like trying to make me feel some type of way about this one pastor because apparently his son became a pastor and bought some old church. And he went on this rant about how the church that his son bought had the old pastor was, what do they call it? Not laid off. He had to step down because he was beating his wife up in the church because she was upset because he was sleeping with the secretary and some other people. And apparently it was called True Vine or something. I actually didn't end up looking that up, and I did see a couple things about a couple different True Vine. I don't know if they were all connected or not, but, and it's like he was trying to like put down other churches to get me to go to his son's church, but little does he know I'm not about to go to any of those places. And plus, they look for certain people. Like, as a street kid, I wouldn't be the type of person that they would even really want in there. Kind of like, what's his YouTube channel? Truth Tiger. In one of his videos where he talks about the church, he mentioned how not only did he see a lot of weird stuff in there, but also, since he's a single dude in like his 30s, he's not really the type of person that they want there. They really want people with families, like husband and wives and kids, who also are financially stable enough to put money into the church. And there's also some other stuff with that, especially when it comes to the homeless side, because, like, people are people, and they're going to try to one-up you, and especially when it comes to my situation and in the quote-unquote black area and in the South, I'm just going to have a lot of people questioning me about a lot of things, like why I'm not living with family or parents or something, and how I'm not honoring parents, and a whole bunch of stuff that's really accusations, because it's like, for all they know, I've been in foster care my whole life. That's another thing when it comes to Let Me Help You Lunatics and these other people that just like to make up assumptions about you. And it's kind of like, what was I gonna say? I don't even remember what I was about to say, but anyway, so a couple things just went down because I ended up seeing this lady while walking. It seems like that's what always happens, but I guess I'm about to have to go to the other side of town anyways, because like, I'm going to be working more near there anyway, so I'm not going to be able to be around here. But, anywho. So, wait a minute, what was I about to say? Oh, yeah. I don't really remember all of it, because things become a repressed memory so fast. But overall, she did the usual thing that people who don't like boundaries and also try to do the whole you're a child, I'm grown thing do. Getting upset because I said boundaries, and then she dragged some other lady into... Well, I don't even know. I can't even really say she dragged the lady into it. I can't remember much already, even though it just happened, but I can more so say the lady kind of dragged herself into it. Actually, no, she asked if I was her daughter, and then that's what... Well, nah, because she had already been standing there listening to the conversation that she had nothing to do with. So, but yeah, so she was more so like a fly monkey enabler, but this lady said that since I told her that I didn't want to live with her, the usual I'm not interested, I don't need you trying to manipulate me and this stuff. She just tried to say that I was a manipulator, of course, and that, well, she's been saying I have lying issues and been accusing me of stuff, and that's something that's always going to happen. It's like, people try to make my current situation, no, people try to use that as an excuse for, like, their assumptions about me, but honestly, as I've always said, anytime you're a person that people see as being on the lower side of the caste system, people are always going to have, like, certain treatment towards you or feelings when they notice your situation. And I know people will say, you're just paranoid and feel like you're being targeted, but honestly, I'm being targeted a lot less than some other people in other places where, like, they've been getting scraped up in white vans by cops and ICE and taken off to be either unalived or work at slave camps. So I'm not as targeted as I could be, but it's like, even in the cash for kids system situation, well, no, let me put that to the side, because of course you're going to be getting targeted and being talked down on and manipulated there, but it's like, even in the abuse situation by outside people have something to say. Like, what was the example I was thinking about? Like, for example, when it comes to the health issues. So, they're iatrogenic, so they came from medical bullcrap. But when I moved to GA, the doctors were actually, like, questioning why in the world I was 80 pounds instead of, like, what other doctors had did, where they just act like that just didn't matter. They questioned why I was 80 pounds and also why my blood work was so bad, to where they were, like, shocked I was even alive and walked in there. But they, of course, didn't do anything. But more so, the point is that some of them had accusations, so they'd be like, well, I feel like you're just being starved at home. And others would be like, well, due to some of my symptoms, because something about the toxins and the mold toxicity, and something with sugar that, like, caused bladder pain. And then some other stuff. Also the back issues, which I found out that actually that's degenerative disc disease from malnutrition from the metabolic issues. Not being able to break down food. But when I was in my abuse situation, they'd be like, oh, you're just pregnant with an STD, and another doctor would be like, oh, well, I just think you're being starved at home, and your mom's just doing her usual and pretending that she doesn't know why you're sick. That's a part of the Munchausen and all that. But of course they never did anything. But now while out here, like what this lady tried to do, like, I've had a couple, no, actually I'm skipping something. In Cali, due to the drug stuff that was going on, when I would go to the homeless doctor, they'd just be like, well, you're fine, or you're just mentally ill and starving yourself, and that's why you're homeless, because you're mentally ill. And of course I had to lie about my age to go to the doctor anyway, so. But it's like, still even with the age I told them I was, I'd still be pretty young to have, like, really figured anything out by now, but oh well. So, drug accusations there. And then with this lady here, no, the drug thing and the whole, maybe you're just not eating enough because you're homeless. And then here this lady tried to say, well, you just need to accept quote unquote help and just live with me, because it's obvious your situation is wearing down on you, because I can tell by looking at you and your weight that you're sickly, because the situation in the quote unquote streets has been wearing down on you. I've been the same size since 14. Honestly, even before I got sick, really the healthiest I ever looked physically, and the biggest I ever was, unfortunately, was when I had the iatrogenic type 2 diabetes / metabolic syndrome. And then now I have, like, a form of iatrogenic pseudo type 1 metabolic issues. And I can definitely say that, like, really the healthiest I ever looked was when I had type 2. Which is kind of, like, funny, but it's kind of funny, though, because, like, some people say that I look fine, but I really don't. I don't think I look as bad as I used to look, because, like, I looked very visibly sick, even in the eyes in my previous situation. From, like, the sleep deprivation and, just the fact that it was before I started working on my health. I'm actually better, and I've been getting a lot better. But, anywho, that's one example, and hopefully that made sense, but just like how when you're in different situations, people always have a different accusation, a different insult, a different, I don't know if I can really say excuse, I guess, but people have something to say for every situation you're in, pretty much. That's the point I'm trying to make with that. And that's the best example I can really think of right now. So it's like, oh, you're just pregnant with an STD. In fact, no, I forgot to say also another accusation back in GA was you're just getting sodomized and different things like that. But I very obviously had pelvic floor dysfunction from toxin buildup and from just low blood sugar, because my body just wasn't functioning right due to low blood sugar. And yeah, so it's like, you're just sleeping around and pregnant with an STD. You're just getting sodomized. You're just being starved. You're just No, not paranoid, they didn't even say that, but you're just making stuff up, or maybe you're, oh yeah, I forgot this one. Maybe you just have Shingella because you're homeless, and Shingella was like a stereotypical homeless disease in Cali. It's a bacteria that's in feces, and pretty much the saying was that homeless people use the bathroom outside and then play in their feces and then eat it, and then they spread Shingella. Because before I started working on my digestion and taking the betaine, HCl, and digestive enzymes, I couldn't digest food, and also with the blood sugar issues, so it would cause me to have acid reflux and vomit a little bit, and then have diarrhea all the time. I don't have that anymore because I'm digesting food now, so that was the actual reason I had that. And I already knew I didn't have Shingella anyways, or H. pylori, because I had had these issues since way before I became homeless anyway, so it was like... And one of the doctors did mention H. pylori because he felt like due to the fact that I was homeless, I was drinking dirty water out the ground, I guess. But when he mentioned H. pylori, they did send me on a rabbit hole of doing research after I had already found out about SIBO, and that's what made me start researching parasites. That's when I found out about fungal overgrowth, and that's how I started to really know what I needed to do to fix my own issues. So I'm glad he said that, although I apparently never had H. pylori, or at least the test didn't come back positive, but it's like, the only reason he even made that stereotype is because I was homeless. Like, if I wouldn't have been homeless, I probably would have never had H. pylori mentioned to me to even, research that and then research the other things that actually led to me figuring out what I could do to help fix my issues. But also, H. pylori, SIFO, and SIBO are all symptoms of metabolic issues and diabetes. But, anywho. So, yeah. There was that. And it's like... Oh, yeah, another thing with the trust issue stuff. She also was trying to do the thing that a lot of people try to do. The same thing that this other lady had did to me, where she started cursing me out, talking about some... I don't know who the F did what the F to you, but I haven't done SHIT to you. And she was screaming and she was foaming at the mouth. This is other toxic lady that actually some people did tell me to stay away from. The one I mentioned, the Let Me Help You Lunatic I mentioned back in Cali. That I guess I could call Y if I remember that. And so, Y was doing all that. And she worked at this art program thing. At least she had her own art community at this place called the Tannery. And I remember they would have events. And so this lady had came from Washington to the African drumming event to drum and dance. And she was at... Okay, no, I have to edit this in because I always forget the reason that this argument actually started. So, how I ended up around her is another long story that could be its own video, but I don't even really remember the situation enough to really get this all in order. But, pretty much, Y had been itchy. And so she made up this story in her head that I had scabies and I gave her scabies, even though I usually would try to avoid her anyways. In fact, I remember when people kept telling me to go around her because she was African and she could help me, quote unquote. I originally knew that meant that I should definitely avoid her anyways, because one, the quote unquote help, which I already knew would most likely put me at risk of getting caught and messing up me laying low. Two, it was giving me voodoo cult lady vibes, although I'd say she's nowhere near as bad as a voodoo cult lady. But anywho, she claimed I gave her scabies. I kept saying that I don't have scabies. I don't even know why I'd have scabies. And I don't even believe you have scabies because you have no scabs on you whatsoever. And you're not even really scratching like that. Maybe she has some kidney or liver type stuff going on, but she definitely didn't have scabies. And then she was talking about making me go to the pool with her, and I was like, why in the world would I... First of all, no, but why would I go to the pool with you and get in the pool if I have scabies, supposedly? And then she was like, I'm going to make you go to the doctor and I'm going to pay for it for you to get checked for scabies because I know you gave me scabies. And I was like, I don't have scabies and I'm not about to go to the doctor. Because for one, going to the doctor, well, nah. I could have lied about my name and age, but like, it wouldn't, no. It wouldn't have been possible for me to go to an actual doctor like she wanted me to like, get checked while being able to lie about my age and name and all that. I could have did that at the homeless doctor, but not at a regular doctor like she was trying to get me to do. And I didn't really know if that would have worked out at all how she wanted it to, but it's like I didn't have scabies anyway, so I was like, no. And that's what led up to the whole argument thing where she flipped out. Actually sitting there while this was happening, she said right while the lady was sitting there looking at me, I really think you need to get away from this lady, and you're not benefiting from this quote-unquote relationship whatsoever. And this was another situation I was kind of like pushed into because of the help bull crap. The issue with this is trauma, though. That's the real issue with this. Because like this other lady, who honestly is a let me help you lunatic herself, definitely nowhere near as bad as the Y lady whatsoever. And also lower ranking Jezebel, also way younger. And she's the person who said that she's had to really get away from that lady and stop talking to her. And it's not even that she's a bad person, it's that she's quote unquote crazy. I don't like the crazy label. She's definitely toxic and abusive. But I think one of the worst things about all of this is that these are traumatized, messed up people themselves, but now, whether they know it or not, they've become perpetrators themselves. And it's really unfortunate because it's like, it's very obvious that they really do have the heart for helping people and they're really called to help people. But they are not in the predicament to be helping anybody. Like the low-ranking Jezebel lady I mentioned, I've actually mentioned her before a couple times over a year or so. When I originally met her, I'm not gonna lie, just like with the rest of these people, I knew that I needed to avoid her at all costs before I had ever even talked to her. So it is my fault when I do end up entangled in these situations with these people. I knew that she was going to be jealous of me and a lot of other things that I can't even really remember right now. And then, as things went on, I knew that she was jealous of me because, like a lot of people, not a lot of people, but like people at least out in the world have been or felt towards me, if this is even coming out right. They don't understand how I'm able to like just do things on my own without constantly having to run and go get a boyfriend and get girlfriends and be desperate and run into these different situations, especially the dating thing, because most people do that. They don't understand how I'm able to do that. They're jealous of me because I'm not making and haven't made the same mistakes that they've made. And that was one of the main things with this lady, other than like her projecting racial trauma onto me. But I remember even she said something that I could say now that I just thought about, which is that she has to avoid all the quote-unquote black people in the town, which really, it wasn't really any. It was like really like 5 Africans, and the Africans are racist anyways. Although the white lady is of True Yasharel, which is, she's the second person that actually showed me that True Yasharel, that never lost their identity and actually stayed in Africa, is just as messed up, if not more, than those of us who have been on the slave trade, which shows that the slave trade isn't an excuse for anything. But anyways, she said she has to avoid all the quote-unquote black people in the town because they're all crazy, and then all the white people are racist, which is true. The white people are all covert and subconscious white savior liberals who are very racist. And you notice that the redlining is so bad in these liberal areas that there are no quote-unquote black people. The whole black population lives in the South. And then the black people, or the quote-unquote black people, were definitely all, I don't like the crazy word, but they had stuff going on. They were dumped out foster kids who, a lot of them were adopted by white families who were very racist. And a lot of stuff happened with that. Others had went from the South or the East Coast to the West Coast because being homeless is better there. Because weather and other stuff were like services. And then, like I already said, some of them were more so Africans than quote-unquote black, but that depends on what you think the label means. But the African ones are more so racist than, like, really the other stuff. And this is the thing, I don't run around asking people for stuff, so it's like, it's always like just me trying to avoid the let me help you lunatics. And I think that just with a lot of the issues in the community in the South, and especially with Southern quote-unquote black people, I feel like it's I don't know. I don't even really know what to say about it. It's just like just with a lot of the Jezebelic stuff, it's not even just let me help you lunatics. Now it's just people that just are similar to let me help you lunatics in their accusations, but it's just like a lot of the whole you're just being grown stuff and not where you're supposed to be at. But it's like, it's just a lot of accusations. And then of course her trying to flip it around on me, but like, of course, oh yeah, like I was saying, people with the I'm grown, you're a child complex. In their mind, a quote-unquote child setting boundaries and telling these really random people, don't come around me, I don't want anything from you, I'm not moving in with you, I'm not going to let you make accusations about me and accuse me of being pregnant and of having a baby somewhere. I don't know where my baby is, because obviously it's not with me, but apparently I have a baby somewhere out there in the world when I probably can't even get pregnant. And then it's still like, by who? Like, it could really only be like a 75-year-old man, because like that's some of the main people that are in some of the environments I'm in, like when I go to some of the resource centers. So it's like, what in the world? But then it's like, can you even get somebody pregnant at 75? But yeah, so when you do that, they tell you you're just growing and rooting, you don't want help, and oh yeah, I haven't done SHIT to you, and somebody hurt you, but it wasn't me, and it's like, I don't run around telling people anything about my life. I don't know why I would. It would really just be weird. And then it's like the people that really do that, the people that actually do run around saying, my dad did this and my mom did that, and when I was in foster care, my cousin said this, and a roach bit me on the leg. When people do that, it's like people just feel like, oh, you're trying to manipulate somebody, you want to make somebody feel bad for you, or you want people to take responsibility for your issues, and I don't have anything to do with that, and that's none of my business, and I'm minding my business. And you just want somebody to help you, and you gotta help yourself, and people help people that save them, whatever in the world, however the saying goes. So it's like when people do that, they just get bashed, even when they're still in the abuse situation. People just talk about how you just need to be grateful and listen to your guardian or whoever the abuser is, and just honor them. Honor the random dude that kidnapped you and won't let you go home to your parents because he's your guardian. But, anywho, that's how people are. But, I mean, that would just be, I feel like that's weird to really run around doing anyways. And it's like, if you really have common sense, you wouldn't do that, because you know people just use it against you. But, yeah. And then, what was I saying? And then overall, nobody really cares. And then people think, like, I don't know, some of the stuff I say is about, or some of the stuff that me and other people who talk about these types of things say is about, like, thinking people are out to get you, everybody hates you. But honestly, one thing I used to tell myself and other people pretty often is that whenever you feel like everybody hates you, remember that not everyone knows you. But realistically, though, it's not even really that. It's just that people are pretty much indifferent, and the people will play. Actually, no, it's a psychological study, and they call it the Lucifer effect. But I feel like it's the same thing as being a flying monkey and enabler. So there's videos about it, I'm pretty sure. It's called the Lucifer effect, and like, that's what a lot of stuff is, though. It's like people are pretty much indifferent to what other people have going on. And then it's like, unfortunately, when people see that someone's being targeted, or they're like on the lower side of the caste system, they'll play Lucifer effect. But other than that, it's not even about people being like after you, or people even really caring about what you have going on, or really even noticing you. It's more about people being indifferent, but then being ready to, like, if you can't beat them, join them, or stuff like that, to like fit in with the crowd. There's something else I wanted to say with that, but I can't remember what I was about to say. And if you want to be truthfully honest, you don't really want to be noticed. Like, something I've learned, especially with these let me help you lunatic situations, is that your best bet is to blend in. You don't want people to notice you, because it's just gonna, I don't even say it's just gonna be like toxic people. It's just gonna be, well, I mean, that's not even necessarily true. I mean, I've had plenty of people help me with stuff that weren't and aren't toxic, but it's just like, let me help you lunatics. They're always willing to do the most stuff, but they're very not safe. And then another thing about it, as I mentioned in whatever video before, probably a couple, these are the same types of people that'll be in documentaries or just in online spaces or even in person, making comments saying, yeah, I tried to help somebody once and they didn't want help, and then the quote-unquote help was them either really trying to be a good person, but they're just so messed up and toxic and screwed up in the head they don't see anything wrong with the very wrong stuff that they did and said. Or there's somebody who is doing a lot of wrong stuff on purpose, so like a cult leader or like a sexual predator, and because somebody wouldn't run up in their house and like, I don't know, be a living sex slave, they didn't want help, and then they'll be typing up this 19-hour paragraph under some video about homeless people saying, I tried to help so many of them, and nobody, not even just homeless people, or even people will say this with like kids in the cash or kid system, or really anybody in the human cash cow systems. The people that'll be like, I worked in a juvenile justice facility, and those kids just want people to feel bad for them, and they like lying on their parents and different bullcrap that these trafficker liars say that work in these human traffic organizations. Because since it's still all labeled under being therapeutic, in their mind, or at least with the lie that they push out, they're quote-unquote helping people, as if being locked up and handcuffed and drugged and stuff and sodomized is being help. But oh well, I guess that's what people think is help, I guess. But it's like, overall though, this makes me think back to that dude, which I put in the description of the last video because I completely forgot to say this. His housing recently came through. He's always had a job, and I remember he told me that his coworkers and his boss and stuff, and nobody at his job even knew he was homeless. That's how he's been able to avoid a lot of extra chaos. I mean, other than the fact that the workplace is very toxic, and they're playing with people's checks there and everything, but other than that, that's how he's been able to avoid the extra bullcrap. And it's made me really think more about this. It reminds me of something I used to say back on the evidence channels pretty often. Number one message to abuse kids, or whatever in the world, something like that. I noticed that the people who are being abused, but never mention that they're being abused, and don't like tell their friends anything, and don't tell the Cash for Kids system staff, mandated reporters, this is happening, can you help me with this, can you help me with that? I noticed that they're able to get through the situation, maybe possibly, but overall, they don't lose friends. Mandated reporters don't turn against them and tell them, oh, you just need to be grateful, and that's none of my business, and I don't want to get involved. The police department and CPS don't come and make their situation worse and rat them out to their abusers because somebody reported it. None of that stuff happens. Just like I said in the number one message to abuse kids video, the best thing you could do is really have people not know. Because for one, it attracts a lot of other abusers who want to come tell you, well, I mean, you know, this is really, really bad, and if you come live with me and sleep in bed with me, then it'll be better. Or maybe you'll just have a lot of people just turn against you. That's the more common thing. Typically, only really people who are already being SA'd or very badly, like, neglected and are able to leave the house are really able to run off with some chomo. More often than not, people just drop from around you like flies once you start talking about something that everybody already knew anyways was going on. You'll lose friends and different things like that. Especially if you were the type of person that really attracted people or got around people that are like your parents that really never liked you in the first place. Pretty much when people know you're in a situation, they get mad at you or they want to like do something, and it's like, what was I about to say? I don't know. People say that I'm negative, but I mean, like, shoot, it's kind of like, you have to be the positivity to yourself. That's pretty much the moral of the story. People will drop like flies, and the best thing you could do to get by without having extra enemies be formed is not let people know you're being abused and back away slowly and quietly. And I feel like this situation is the same thing. But it's like, overall, though, I don't want to, like, make it seem like it's, like, a depressing thing. Because it's like, I'm not in, like, a dire situation. I don't even really feel like I'm in, like, a bad situation. And it's like, this isn't my end goal either. Not that my end goal is being in the Matrix, but it's like, it's just that people around, especially in communities like this, with these toxic Southern people and toxic, quote-unquote, black people, especially the women, and, like, just different mindsets about them, they especially, it's like, it's not even just, like, the insults about, yeah, I have a job and you don't, or my kids are good and my kids aren't grown and they're not disrespecting me and they live in my house and they would never do this and they would never leave. And these are the same people that go to the club all day while they send their kids out to steal people's cars for them. Or like the boy that told me and my mom get into it all the time and we still work it out and I still never leave her house. You and your mom get into it, you just got off the ankle monitor, you're on probation. You're just all types of stuff, and it's like, it doesn't seem like, the situation's definitely not good, but okay. Cognitive dissonance, people. Which goes into the thing I said in the last video about the real reason I believe that there's more homeless white kids and white people than quote-unquote black people. And the reason is actually a good thing. But it's still like what was I saying? I don't know, like, overall, like, as I've always mentioned, quote-unquote black and quote-unquote white people, on a large scale, equally, they have no accountability and they don't see anything wrong with anything they do, but it just keeps a cycle going, the cycle of divide and conquer, with all the fake racial events on the news, the cycle of not even liking their own kids, but then doing this ALM, BLM stuff that they like to do. It's all fake, it's all a delusion, and the unfortunate thing about it is that when you can see the truth and you're like, not, you want to get out the brainwashing and get out the matrix and you're not ignorant and all that, you're always going to have people really trying to manipulate you and making you feel like, okay, you're the bad guy. Especially in these types of communities where people have these toxic mindsets on a large scale. The toxic mindsets that keep their communities in the position that they're in on a large scale. And it's like, okay, I forgot to say something else. Don't remember what I was last saying, but, yeah, like, that dude, though, he really did make me remember that if I could really get somewhere where I'm not seen too much, maybe even just go far away enough to, like, another side of town, and, like, lay low and really find a really good spot where I'm not seen, it could, like, help a lot. Because it's like, this is why I'd rather be, like, in the woods or mountains somewhere. Although, of course, I can't do that. I have, like, if I want to come out and, like, try to find work, I can't be in the woods and the mountains. But when I'm not, like, trying to find work, that's where I'd rather be. But it's like, just not being seen helps a lot. It kind of reminds me of this lady's story that I mention pretty often. She was talking about how she was homeless, but luckily she had a car and also could drive. And she was homeless, and, like, she decided that one way to stay safe, especially as, like, a woman, but I would say really for anybody, is not letting people really, really know that she's out there like that. So, like, she'd be in homeless areas where people would see her out, but she would drive far away in her car and go park somewhere to go to sleep. And she'd leave before it even really got dark. And that kept people from knowing that she was really, really out there, and also helped her get out of her situation after a while. And it's like, if you could really blend in and hide somewhere to where people really don't know that you're actually out here, I guess, it definitely plays a huge part. Cause like I was saying in the description of the last video, this dude that I mentioned, he's always like, at least when he was still out here, he was always letting it be known that he works just like everybody else does. In fact, he would even like go to the library and stuff with his work badge and walkie-talkie on and work shirt on just to prove a point. Also because he would go to work from there and get picked up from there in the morning and the afternoon. But it's also like I was saying in the description though, it's like I don't really want to do all this proving a point stuff. Like the lady earlier, what was I calling her? S? She was also trying to like make me feel like I'm argumentative and I just like to argue with adults. And oh yeah, I forgot to say she did the whole "I see why you're out here now" thing. I hate when people do that. That's like the baseline of people that are manipulative. Let me help you, lunatics. The whole because you won't let me overcross your boundaries and drag you into my house. I see why you're out here now. Because you like to argue with adults. And anywho, what was I saying? Can't even really remember, but yeah, I don't like the whole prove. Oh yeah, I was saying I don't like to argue. That was the other thing. That's why I had thought about this thing with the whole you like to argue with adults, but it's like I don't want to argue with people. I don't want to be throwing up a badge in somebody's face and having to prove to people that I matter and prove to people. I mean, I literally just, like anybody, I hardly doubt anyone is, but like, I mean, literally the whole thing of the evidence channels, the whole reason I started the evidence channels was to prove stuff like that. To prove that I matter and to prove this happened and prove that I'm sane and prove that, what was, oh yeah, to have evidence to use in court, a court case that would never happen because there is no help. Proving I'm not subhuman and all that. I don't want to prove anything to anybody about Jack. I don't have to prove any. Well, I guess I do, but I don't want to. But shoot, it's like I don't want to have to do that though. Like he was even telling me about how he went to the grocery store and his phone was going dead, so he plugged it up in one of the outlets outside the grocery store in the front. And then some dude was like, "Dang, you're doing bad," and he was like, "Why the F do I gotta be doing bad for? I can't charge my phone for a second?" And I mean, he's not wrong though. But it's like, I get why he's like that. He even reminds me of like a less toxic, non-abusive, and like horrendous version of my mom's boyfriend. Mostly because of the fact that like certain characteristics come from the whole single mom, abusive dad, effeminate thug persona type stuff. Not that he's literally into the thug stuff, as I've said before, because he knows that stuff is stupid, but it's just like certain character traits that people under certain trauma-based mind control have. Oh yeah, like the whole popping off thing. Like my mom's boyfriend did that too. Not like that, and really for 99% of the time no reason, over stupid stuff. But it's still like, I mean, I don't want to have to pop off. And I mean, of course, like people with the toxic I'm grown, Jezebelic complex, you're a child and you can't tell me anything. They're always going to act like anything is being rude and disrespectful. But it's like, in reality, like actually popping off, I don't want to have to do that, to be honest. I don't want to have to prove stuff and any of that and argue with people. Talking to people makes me pretty nervous anyways, but it's like, I don't even want to have to do all that and show up places with badges on and work clothes. Which, as I said, though, he did kind of have to do that because he would go to work from there. But it's still like, he even would say that like he would wear his badge just to show that he has a job. And I mean, I get it, I get the point, but I don't want to have to do that though. But it definitely does like help with getting treated better, not being seen as like trash or crap in the middle of the road or something. But like, I just don't really care for it anymore. And that's why me and a lot of other people that really fall into the whole nomad thing, which I wouldn't even really consider myself that nomadic right now. I'm trying to settle down right now for a lot of reasons, but like, that's why we just stopped even caring about the whole matrix, normal life, what do people call it, nuclear family, get married, job, house, car. I mean, that's kind of like not even really that realistic right now anyways, because the US dollar is falling into like the abyss, and that's going to really hit the fan eventually, and then it's going to be it after that. then that's when the abuse system can be rolled out more. But it's like still, even for the right now, that's like pretty unrealistic. I mean, obviously for like me and for like the situation and me still being young, the whole, it's like, I mean, it's really rare for somebody who's like younger to even really even have like a house, a car, and all that stuff, unless they're like one of those college tech bros or something. Which this is not the area for like college tech bros. Those are the only people that are the teenagers and people in their 20s that even have like their own houses and cars and all that stuff that goes along with that. But as I already said in the video, street kids aren't seen as kids. I mean, people have more standards for people that are on their own, that they feel like need to just quote unquote grow up faster, as if you were less on your own in the abuse situation. It's like when you're a street kid, you're just visibly on your own compared to when you're in the abuse situation. And people are like laughing at you while you're crying and sleep deprived and starving and skinny. And they're like, oh, why do you look stressed out? You're too young to be stressed out. Why do you look like you're tired of life? And laughing it off. Like, it's like, okay, it's like, I mean, you're pretty much, a lot of people have been pretty alone, but it's like, now that you're visibly alone, okay, now you need to get your stuff together and accept the fact that you're alone and do what the quote-unquote grown people are doing or should be doing. Something else that I can add in that I completely forgot. Another thing with this, which also goes along with the whole you're a child until thing that I always say, it's like, especially with me, it's like people either see me as a quote-unquote child, which would really be under 10, but it's always used against me, just like with the whole people doing the whole, well, since you're by yourself, you're technically grown. So that means you're a sex object up for grabs, which, I mean, not that doesn't even really matter when it comes to an age. It's not about an age. That's just like whenever you're visibly up for grabs, or people know you're visibly in a situation where they assume I'm going to be the usual person that they're just going to be able to manipulate into stuff, but luckily that's not me. But still, the whole sex object thing, which even happens to most people when they're still in the abuse situation and in the abusive house, and then people just blaming me for stuff and just forcing a lot of like expectations and standards on me about things that I should have and should have accomplished that are very unrealistic, that honestly most people never do. It's like people can't just see me as a younger person without them trying to do the whole toxic I'm grown, you're a child complex. You're not where you're supposed to be. Or see me as like, well, honestly, I don't even know what to say about the whole I'm grown thing and them just like throwing expectations onto me. And it's like I'm used to stuff like that because, one, I always got called childish and got told that I needed to get my stuff together since I was a literal toddler. And then a lot of other things. And as I've said before a few times, I never actually realized that I was a kid, and that like my little bit of time that some people are lucky, a few people are lucky enough to have as like a free time to relax and figure themselves out was, or is, wasting away right now. Until very recently. Like, as I've said before, it wasn't even like right after escaping. It was like very recent that I actually realized that I was still a teen and still a kid. And just like I said before in some other video, with this post that someone made about their story, and they were actually still a teen when they made this post, and they were like, they were homeless since whatever age and on their own, and they had to go to court in New Zealand to be able to get emancipated. They forgot about their teen years way before they even became a teen, and now they ride their bike to work every day for a couple miles. And it's like, it's another reason I don't really like people forcing stuff onto me, because it's like either the usual you're a child toxic stuff or the other things. And like I said, a lot of people here just automatically assume I'm 30 anyways, because they just like to pretend that street kids don't exist in places like this. Which is really funny because, like I always say, in the areas where they're used to street kids, a lot of people assume I'm like 11 at the youngest, but 14 max. Which I still find crazy because, I mean, most 11-year-olds are bigger than I am, so I don't know why people assume that, but like the grown people, quote unquote, that try to bash me, kind of like a lady was trying to do earlier by asking me about if I've been to school and what am I doing in my life and uh what am I wait a minute. She was like, what are you doing with your life at 35? Where do you work at? And how do you get to work? Do you have a car and a driver's license? And it's like, I know it's because they know that I'm like younger for real, but it's also still condescending. It's no different from like the rich white people that are like in these, well, for one, the ones that are in Serpent Sea bloodline, but also they're like in these fields that most people can't get into, including the immigrants as well that also do this, even the ones that really don't have any money, but how they'll walk up to street kids, as I've mentioned before in other videos, and they'll be like, so what do you guys do for a living? And they'll walk up to like a group of homeless, dumped out foster kids that are 14, some younger than that, some older than that, and be like, well, what do you guys do for a living? And it's like, what in the world? You get told wait till 18, and then there's a new excuse every year. And then at, I don't know, like 22, you're told, well, I didn't start working for my company till I was like in my 30s, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at your age either, and you know, are you sure you want to go into this field? And I was still pretty immature at that age and stuff like that. Or I just tell people sometimes that I'm older to try to get them to leave me alone, but I definitely won't say that. Sometimes it doesn't work, like in situations like this, where of course they just try to do the whole you just want to be grown thing and you just want to be 35. You know, nobody really wants to be anything. People just be what they have to be truthfully honest. And that's another thing about this, with the whole wanting to be grown accusation simply because of my situation, which I don't even know what the term grown means. It's usually used to like bash people who are hypersexual from SA, which that's not my situation, but it's always used for something stupid, as I've always talked about throughout the years. But overall, people aren't wanting to be anything. People are being what they have to be because they have to take care of themselves. And it's like kind of like post Patrick T and many other people make about how like a lot of times quote unquote children are abandoned even while being in like a house full of people. Not word for word, but he makes posts saying things like that. And that's the reality. Everybody's really just being what they have to be or feel like they have to be. Nobody's really wanting to be anything. And that's the thing, it's like people either, especially in areas like this, will make me feel like I want to be quote unquote grown, whatever that means. Something stupid really. Or they'll just try to act like I'm way older than I actually am and then make me feel like I'm not being how quote unquote grown people should be. So, and it's like crap. Wanting to be grown is never what anyone wants. People just want to be able to be left alone and not be tortured. But apparently, as long as you're like attracting certain people and in certain situations and not being able to do a good enough job of avoiding certain people, it never ends. The bullcrap from like people's insults and stuff. But overall, the most painful realization I had in my life was the one of actually realizing that I was a kid. And then, like I said, it's like very recent. That's always going to be the most painful realization of all of this. I never saw I don't even like the child label, but I never saw myself as being as young as I actually was. And even now, the time is still pretty much fading away. And it's like kind of like how Patrick Tian and other therapy type people make posts about how toxic parents see their children as selfish little adults. And it's kind of like that. Like, I just never really realized that I actually was a child when I was actually a child and under 10. I I just never saw myself as young as I really was. Like, I always just saw myself as, like, the survivor and fighter and trying to help other people and keep myself up and keep my head above water. Only now, since being out here, have I actually got the chance to breathe. And people are trying to screw that up. But only now have I realized that. And it's like now, people just want to try to like now force the whole, well, since you're out in the open and I feel like you're an easy target, now you need to grow up and marry me, or well, not even marry me. Let me use you and get you pregnant and then disappear into the sunlight. Not the sunlight, the sunset. Since, well, I'm I don't know, 75. As one example. Or the usual, well, you're technically grown now, so now you need to figure stuff out. Stuff that I've been trying to figure out my entire life that most people never figure out. But you need to figure out how to learn how to drive and how to get a car and get a house and all that stuff. And it's like, I mean, the Matrix was never my end goal, as I already said, but it's like people are trying to steer my life where they want it to go, and I'm trying to have a little bit of free relaxation time that I can. I'm trying to avoid the whole Matrix thing, and I feel like when you get older you have to do this stuff. I already know that none of that is true. Just because I know that so much stuff is about to hit the fan, that everybody might as well be doing what they can while they still can, before the 15-minute cities and everything else. I think it's also another reason why, especially after escaping the whole self-confined situation and just usual isolation, even though I know that I'd get really nervous around them and I pretty much embarrass myself, I'm still like really adamant about trying to figure out where people my age are even usually at and like wanting to be around them. Also because I'm just tired of being around chomos all day and just toxic older people. But it's like I'm just trying to like live a little bit of a life I can of like, I don't know, just relaxing and being around people my age before, like, I don't know. I mean, you're never really too old for that, but I feel like there's just ideas about when you're too old to do certain stuff, which honestly, I mean, I've always been pretty behind. Like, I mean, most teenagers that aren't like, I don't know, homeless nomads don't even really like playing in the woods and stuff. So it's like I've always been pretty behind, quote unquote, as far as like the norms of society. And ever since I was a literal child under 10, I mostly was around people who were older, usually elderly, but then other times people in their 20s. And even still now, that's the youngest I'm ever around sometimes. Which also reminds me of another video I wanted to make about how older friends aren't really your friends. They're just people that see themselves as a parent figure or an older sibling type figure, which doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, but sometimes it's like a pity party thing. And also, a lot of them don't really want people to know that they hang out with you or that they're around you because it's embarrassing, quote unquote, that they're hanging around with some people, depending on who they're talking to, would see as a quote unquote child or just somebody who's way younger than them. And it just, in their eyes at least, it shows that they can't really make friends their age and that nobody their age wants to be around them. And so they just don't want to be seen around you and will like try to act like, oh, you're just their cousin, or they'll just hide you. They'll like ask you for money, use you as an emotional support pit, and then disappear off with some people their age or even way older that don't even really like them anyways, that assault them at bars or either just want to drag them into a relationship. Which is still pretty much my fault for constantly putting myself in situations where I'm reminded that even though I could be the good friend or do my best to be, I'll still be left, whether the person is a male or female, for some dude who doesn't like them. At least my Matrix standards should be doing, but it's like, I never really did want to live like the average life, and if you want to be honest, it's not meant for everybody, and everybody really just can't fit into that. Kind of like somebody said in a screenshot in one of my videos, I don't even remember which one, but they were like, I feel like certain people are just bound to end up homeless because they're not able to fit into society. And then of course, somebody that's a part of the white addict projection tried to make it about drugs and was like, you mean because they use drugs? Drugs has nothing to do with anything. And I really get what they mean. It's like a lot of people really aren't designed to really fit into society. And of course, those are the people that end up in the human cash cow systems or just disappear and fade away. But it's like, if you could do the life with somebody and like, I don't know, like for train hoppers. But usually they're still pretty depressed too, because it's like, it's still just the way they're treated in society. And the other issues that go along with that, and the reason that they ended up in this situation. Because typically, people only find out that there's an alternative way to live because they couldn't fit into the mainstream way of living. So they get dumped out or have to escape something, and they find out about the alternative. Although, I always saw myself out here, so like, I was always watching documentaries about street kids and feral children and stuff since 6. We're just like, some people really didn't know this, like, travel, hammock living, camping, cave dwelling, train hopping stuff exists. They didn't find out till after, like, being dumped out or whatever. But then, I mean, on the West Coast, you'll meet plenty of people that have been hitchhiking since 15 and even way younger than that. Like, I mean, there's plenty of stories about people who hitchhike across the country at 13, 15, homeless since 7, stuff like that. But it's like, I definitely feel like there should be a better community and a better way to go about it, but I feel like the unfortunate thing is that people are people, and so it's like, especially with all the West Coast communities that revolve around the trauma side and the white addict projection, you just end up around a lot of like very risky white people who like nudism and skinny dipping, who are all on substances. The sexual predator thing is always there because that's everywhere, but it's like, there definitely should be a community and a way for people to, like, I don't know, like a support group, not support group, community group. Kind of like the ones I was trying to make, but it's kind of really, it's especially really hard to, like, even get street kids to be able to find out about what little harm reduction resources are out there. Because it's like, I mean, a lot of people wouldn't think to look like a lot of people when they get kicked out or have to, like, escape something. They don't even think about, like, should I Google something to see if there's, I don't know, some advice somewhere about how I could do this the safest way possible? People typically just have to run on, like, a whim or limb or whatever it's called. I can't even remember which one it is. But, yeah. But I hate when people do that, though. I hate when people do the whole, even though I haven't told them anything about my life, but I hate when they do that whole, I'm not the person who hurt you and somebody hurt you, but it wasn't me and I'm just trying to do the right thing and you won't accept help because you're hurt. And it's like, it's just so annoying. Although, I'm not even gonna lie though, it is really unfortunate that the people who are offering this stuff just aren't safe people and they're very ignorant and just completely dangerous. It's like crap. She really does remind me of the voodoo cult lady though. I definitely wouldn't say she's anywhere near as bad, but it's still very similar. And that's the one good video I really have in one of these situations. They're the two good, if I ever remember to re-upload the part 2. So the 2 good videos I have of one of these situations. But yeah, like some lady she was talking to joined in. And she was talking about some, I can't really remember what she said, but she said something about how she works for the federal government and how she could just send in a picture of me to, like, figure out stuff about me. And I hate when people do that. I hate when people, one of the reasons I hate that is because one is, it's given, like, boule house nigger COINTELPRO. I hate when people do that because of that, but it's like, also, you're acting like, I don't know, like I did something to somebody and like I'm running from the FBI or whatever in the world. I hate when people do that. And it's like, it also would be very unsafe for me if somebody did do something like that. Because it's like, also, I'm smear campaign all over the internet. So it's like, oh, then they see this and then they're going to use that against me to, like, try to prove their points. And they're going to, like, spread bullcrap rumors about how I wanted to help this person, but then I saw this about them and now I know. And then her relative said she was retarded or whatever. Whatever is even still up, or, well, a lot of stuff. Pretty much everything is still up. Probably some new stuff, but it's like, they see that and that could be used against me, and that would also put me in danger. And then that would also mean I would definitely have to leave the area. Like, probably the whole county, to be honest. If not, maybe even the state, because that would just cause so many issues. But it's like, also, I don't like when people try to, like, scare me into stuff because they're like, oh, well, I feel like you're just lying to me about stuff that, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. I meant to mention this in the beginning. The thing where people act like, when Jezebel people, who I was also told are monitoring spirits as well, they act like they deserve to know all your business and everything about you and your full name and address and your social security number. And then when you don't run around telling everybody your business, they're like, oh yeah, you're lying about something or you're hiding something. And in fact, I remember when I was in NY, I had this one lady who was also quote unquote black tell me that or tell somebody right in front of me, of course, that maybe I just don't know my address because I'm mentally ill. And it's like, that sounds more like amnesia than like quote-unquote mental illness, or at least mainstream mental illness, or at least what people usually mean when they say mental illness. But I have to remember that Americans will call anything mental illness. But it's like, because I won't tell you all my business, I don't know, have some type of, like, amnesia. I guess maybe she was saying, like, schizo type stuff. Because I guess maybe sometimes when they do split or have, like, what really seems like metabolic syndrome, not metabolic syndrome, metabolic issues, seizures, they, like, forget stuff or whatever. Maybe that's what she meant, but it's like, people are just so adamant about knowing your business. It's actually crazy. Especially when you're a quote-unquote child, but it's like people really feel that way about, like, a lot of people in different situations. They feel like you did something to somebody and you're hiding something. You're not doing something you should do. Like, in fact, the same lady that accused me of being mentally ill and not remembering my address because I wouldn't tell her all my business was also like what did she say? She asked me if I had a bachelor's degree. And I think I noticed this in other people where it's like they feel like, well, you seem smart, so either you're a mass manipulator, and you secretly have a bachelor's degree, or you secretly have a bachelor's degree because you seem smart, so you're out here because you're mentally ill and smart, because you seem like you have a bachelor's degree, so you shouldn't be out here. And it's like, but you're the paranoid one, but they make up all these weird, crazy stories in their head because they just can't fathom that people have different lives going on. That's kind of the moral of the story. It's actually kind of funny though. But yeah, she was really like, I think she's mentally ill and doesn't know how old she is and where she lives. And it's like, okay. But yeah, that was in Manhattan. And it's like, I don't even know what I was about to say. That was still funny though, I'm not gonna lie, but it's like, I don't know what else to say about it. But I just can't put up with it though. It's like, it's too triggering for me for one. It's like, I don't even really get how people like the lady in the voodoo cult lady's house, and even the elderly lady, like, even though she's quote-unquote gullible as her and other people say, it's like, are people are just too desperate, I feel. I just couldn't go for it. Like, I really couldn't be sitting up in somebody's house getting screamed at and having a whole bunch of mind games being played. Whether they really feel like they're doing it on purpose or not, I just couldn't deal with it. And as I learned a long time ago, the people that do stuff like that on accident are even worse than the people who are doing it on purpose and know that they're manipulative and toxic. Nothing's worse than somebody who's evil on accident or just toxic on accident, because as I already said in the part 1, it's not even that Let Me Help You lunatics are bad people necessarily. It's just that, I don't know, they're pretty much just screwed up like we all are, but it's just like, they I don't know, kind of like how a lot of Jezebel people will be like, everybody around me is schizophrenic and I'm the only person that's normal and sane, and I feel like everyone else around me is delusional. It's like so many Jezebel people are like that, where they're like, yeah, I'm the only sane person, this person's schizophrenic, my neighbor's schizophrenic, and it's like, why is everybody else schizophrenic and delusional? But they do that to make themselves feel better and feel like they're not the one with the issue, but it's like, a lot of people 40 plus are like this, and it's like they're just so set in their ways and so used to it. And majority of the people that they hang around are like this as well. And then people always say that like that generation was the last generation to be able to actually afford things and be able to buy like groceries with $1, and they had it good and they take it for granted. Everybody with sense knows that obviously they did not have it good, and a lot of stuff went very, very wrong. Very, 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 very wrong. Like, scientists try to say, oh, well, the reason that a lot of people 40 plus are quote-unquote narcissists is because there's a lot of lead toxicity because, hold up, they used to build with lead, formaldehyde, and it's like, it's not even about that. They try to make it about the brain damage, but it's very spiritual, and it's about trauma and other brainwashing. And honestly, I think I can kind of get what people mean though, because I feel like being in the South, what people call the Bible Belt, or maybe that's Texas, I don't know. It seems like the whole South is like the Bible Belt. It's like, due to the fact that religion is the New World Order and like it's all false and people just like really playing acts and just following man-made laws, not even really being on like the spiritual side or even really caring about helping people or helping themselves or fixing themselves and all of that. It's like I can't actually see how, well, I mean, there's a lot of cults on the West Coast, but it's like I can see how like being in like these areas where people are like very openly religious and playing these different holier than thou manipulative games is definitely worse than like being in areas where people aren't really like that to a certain extent. Because it's all games and it's all acting regardless. It's really like, it's all a game. Then another thing too, which goes back to the whole, in every situation there's a different accusation and assumption. The idea that being out here, even that I've been out here so long, quote unquote, that I have like a mindset about everybody. And I mean, a lot of people are going to feel this type of way, but it's like, okay, crap, I thought about something else I could add in. Everything I learned that I needed to learn about how people are, manipulation, psychological stuff, I learned way before I ended up out here, luckily. So, being out here, quote unquote, which I don't even like the term in the streets especially, but being out here has nothing to do with anything I think or feel. It's actually the best and safest I've ever been, and the most calm things have been. But unfortunately, I'm really not in a good area for the situation right now. And running into Let Me Help You lunatics and different people that have bullcrap to say does screw it up. But honestly, nothing's happened out here except for people like this that say this. It kind of reminds me of what Allie Carter said once. She couldn't even see herself dating people, not just because of the trauma, but because she has certain realities about the world that most people don't have. And the people that have the most realities of how the world really is are always the people that are labeled off as having a warped sense of reality, being deranged, mentally disturbed, insane, paranoid, delusional, detached from reality, different things like that. The more grounded in reality you are, the more you're going to get told you're not grounded in reality. Like somebody told me back during the evidence channels. Actually, I made up a screenshot of that. Or a video of that, really. But it's like, kind of like I said in the cycles video, a lot of people are really in like these different zones of thinking. Well, no, realms of thinking. And it's like a lot of people are in these different branches of the realms of thinking, and this is even coming out right. Like how, well, like the elderly or middle-aged dudes that are still living in their toxic mom's basement or house or whatever, being infantilized and being forced to play surrogate spouse, emotional incest, covert essay husband. A lot of dudes are in that realm of thought. And people consider it normal, especially in areas like this. Just having your toxic mom just trap you in her house while she plays baby daddy with her son, stuff like that. People are now calling it like mom boys. Not that that's really a new term, but there's emotional incest and a lot of other things. That's a realm of thought that people consider normal. And when you're one of the people that have a high enough level of thinking to know that that's not good, even though it is definitely normal, because just because something is normal doesn't mean it's good, it just means that it's common. And what's common, honestly, isn't good. And when you're not doing what's common or in the beliefs of what's common, you're the bad guy. And it makes me think more about like how the abuse system will work. You're not in the common belief and in the common mindset, and you're not into transhumanism, so you're the bad guy. It's all really the same if you really think about it. As I've been thinking a lot the past couple of years, to be able to lose your mind, you have to actually have your mind first. And a lot of people can't lose it because they don't have it. You gotta have some realizations to be able to snap. If you don't have the realizations, you can't snap. And that's the moral of the story, pretty much. And a lot of people see the reality as depressing, but it's like, honestly, I can't speak for anybody else, but I feel like, and as I've said before, it's really just how, like, you get treated when you're seen a certain way that really makes things bad. The poor treatment, not really the situation. I mean, that depends, though. Like, I mean, as far as I could say with my personal situation, I don't really have anything going on. I don't really have anything bad going on. The only thing bad that does happen is the police bullcrap with, like, the whole Shane / Elvis quote-unquote situation. Let me help you, lunatics. But yeah, I really should have avoided that lady completely, though, and kept avoiding her. That was a bad idea because, of course, now she's going to have more lies to tell about me that can add on to the whole I don't want help thing. Now she's going to be able to... I mean, shoot, I don't know what she might tell people I did or said to her. But that's how it is, though. People who can't see their own issues are always going to project on other people or onto the person that they're... I guess I could say victimizing or trying to victimize. I don't really like the term victim because I don't really see myself that way, but like in the situation where you're like, I don't know, possibly going to be smear campaigned, or you're just being like made to feel like you're the bad guy for not letting people manipulate you. And another thing is that since these people are very ignorant and brainwashed and set in their ways and they don't see anything wrong with anything they do because they're quote unquote grown, they don't really see themselves as being the manipulators or toxic people that they are. And she was claiming that I don't know the definition of the word manipulate, but it's very obvious that she doesn't. But it's like still though, that's why I don't like stupid people, because it's like it can be very hard to tell, okay, who's stupid and who's doing it on purpose. But as I've always said, never let anybody convince you that they're stupid, and if they are stupid, stay away from them anyways. In fact, I even seen someone say once that their mom or grandma or something like that told them, people say that bad people are the people to watch out for, but the reality is that stupid people are the people to watch out for. Kind of like something that I realized in, really young. I would say probably like actual childhood, under 10, and it's that being stupid makes you evil because you do things that you see nothing wrong with. And one example I always use is like the parent that tortures their toddler by lying and saying that there's like a monster in the closet or something like that because they think it's funny because they're stupid. But they just set the kid up to be paranoid and also to have like actual fear spirits, and fear spirits causing them to like see the monsters that their parents created. Stuff like that. Being stupid makes you evil. And lastly, one thing that I have worried about, but don't like to admit, the caseworker at a youth resource center I used to go to in Cali, even it had brought it to my attention once again that this is something that I very obviously worry about, becoming an abuser myself, because it seems like it's the easiest, most normal thing to become, an abuser of yourself and others, which doesn't mean you have to be like some horrendous evil person. You just have to be toxic and ignorant enough and going along with the flow and the normality of doing and saying whatever you want to whoever. So many people are just not nice to themselves or others, to summarize, to where it just seems like it's almost impossible to not be this way, or to not become that way, unless you stay by yourself. Like, I remember years ago I used to say, if I'm by myself, I can't be hurt or hurt anybody, but that's not what I'm trying to do, though, right now. I don't really care too much for that. It's just that, kind of like somebody was telling me, in fact, no, the first, or maybe the second Dronophile video, whatever the title is, I don't know, Dronophiles are annoying, something like that. The guy at the end in the comments who was talking about how I'm around people that don't have good judgment, to make a long story short. But the part where he, or maybe she, mentioned that one of the ways to really get in a better environment is to be in environments where people are just generally doing better. But then that's kind of iffy, though, because it's like, I mean, when you get in the upper middle class and rich areas, like when I was in, I don't know, Santa Cruz, it's like weird stuff going on there, too. It's where all the serial killers come from. A lot of them still secretly live in the Pogo Knit forest. Like SA, and parents inviting the middle schoolers and high schoolers over to make CSA imagery videos with them and selling them, and divorce stuff popping off because of that, and other weird stuff, and nudist cults, people bringing their kids and babies to nude beaches, and all types of stuff. It's like, I mean, shoot, kind of like that one comment in the screenshots at the beginning of the last video under Patrick Teehan's post about how half-safe people aren't safe people. I'm however many years old, and it seems like there are no safe people. And I wouldn't say that, but I feel like, I don't know, it's like, I mean, I have to be half-safe, I guess, because it seems like a lot of people are half-safe, so it's like, I mean, am I half-safe? And like I've learned, especially when it comes to the homeless community with homeless women, it's like, if they're not unsafe, the people that they hang around are unsafe because they're all sexual predators and stuff like that. I learned that back in Cali. In fact, that's why I made that video a year plus ago where I was like, never trust homeless women, or something like that. I can't even really remember the title. And then it's like people talking about seeing the bright side, but screwing this up. When you're in certain situations, you have certain generational curses, there's certain spirits attached to you, or you just attract certain people because you're seen as a quote-unquote vulnerable person. It's like, it's a lot of stuff that you attract that makes it hard to really notice the bright side, but it's like, I don't even want to put it like that, though, because it's like, it's not like I'm like depressed or anything, although people try to project that onto me. Even people who are like living the normal, or at least are now living the stereotypical life of like working a job, they know that they really don't like and they really can't handle or take it, but they don't really feel like they can handle the other options. Really, it's a mindset thing, because you're going to be depressed and wanting to unalive yourself no matter what's going on. If you just have a certain mindset, or maybe you're just not really living or trying to find your true purpose, but it's like, I mean, this person has always been trying to project their depression and wanting to unalive their selfness onto me. What was I saying? Oh yeah, she feels like the whole finding your purpose thing and all the spiritual stuff is stupid, but it's like, obviously what she's doing isn't working for her. And like, throughout all the times of her using me as an emotional support pet, using me for stuff and getting me to like get her stuff, but you can't get jack in return in general, projecting the unalive herselfness onto me, and talking about she wants to drive off of different cliffs with me in the car, which I don't get scared, so it didn't really make me feel any type of way, but it's like, you're always trying to make me feel like I'm depressed, and it's like, she makes me feel like what I'm doing now isn't working for me, but the thing is, what a lot of people seem to not care about is that I'm not doing anything. I'm just going with the flow, trying to figure things out, which takes time, like everybody else does. But some people, which this person didn't even have the luxury of, are able to figure this out. And it's like, crap, if you were depressed when you didn't have a job and you wanted to drive off a cliff, you were depressed when you didn't have a house and you wanted to drive off a cliff, and now you have all that and you still want to drive off a cliff. Obviously, that's not your problem and it's not working for you. But due to their projection, they want to make me feel like I'm just in this situation because I'm depressed, and it's like, that wouldn't really make sense. But overall, I learned years ago that whenever you get around people, you shouldn't ignore red flags because you don't want to leave somebody like you were left, or because you're confused, or maybe in certain situations you need something, or you really hope that one day they're going to like give you stuff that they promised you while breadcrumbing you and future faking, and you don't block them. Eventually it's going to come a time where something's going to pop off, you're going to confront them, they're going to play victim like the let me help you lunatic lady does and other people do. When they do their last straw, they're going to gaslight you a lot and act like they have no idea what you're talking about. They didn't do anything. They don't know why you're upset if I didn't already say that. They're going to flip everything around on you, and they're going to act like they don't know what happened. They're going to tell lies about you, and they're going to block you. And they're going to act like they had to escape you or something. Which is why you shouldn't run into situations that you know you shouldn't have in the first place. This hasn't happened yet with this person, but I haven't really talked to them in a minute. I really never had plans on them having my number. But one day, since they had gave me their number, I did ask them about some pants they were supposed to sell for me, which I talked about. And actually, I think I have a video about some of the situations with this person. But anywho, it's like, I don't know. I just learned years ago that whenever I feel like I should block somebody or not talk to them in the first place and I don't, eventually something happens where they end up blocking me and acting like I was the bad guy. And then it's like, dang, I knew I should have blocked them. And so it's like, you have to have this, like, let me block them first mindset. Which is kind of like a joke, though, because more so not talking to these people in the first place. But it's like they're telling me what I'm doing isn't working, even though I'm not doing anything. But it's like it's not working for them either. And I could definitely say me and this person have more in common than, like, me and the, I don't know, the toxic 40-plus-year-olds. But one thing that I've realized a long time ago is that unfortunately it seems like the only people that are really nice to you and understand you somewhat enough when it comes to, like, maybe just similar experiences is people that also really don't like you and really, they're halfway nice to you. The people who treat you the best treat you the worst. Which is why I don't have time for any of it. And that makes me quote unquote paranoid. But overall, it's like, I don't know, I just don't like being in the cycle of the half-safeness of, like, confronting somebody about something that they did or said and they just look you in the eyes and tell you that none of it happened or they don't see a problem with it. I just don't like it. It gets nowhere when you want to rip their face off.